Hi folks, I'm Jim Finney. I am very glad to welcome you here today to Lee Mace's Ozark Opry Museum. I have been given the great privilege to be your host today for a tour of the museum, and we're going to get started right now. I'd like to direct your attention to the mural on the wall, which is a life-size picture of the band taken in 1978 for the 25th anniversary of Ozark Opry. Wait a minute, something's wrong. Goof, what are you doing here?
Hey, isn't this exciting? I'll tell you.
Tell you what, I wasn't looking to see you, buddy.
Yeah, I'm like a flower on the wall there.
I'm telling you what.
This is really something, this museum.
I'm telling you what, this is a wonderful place to bring back some good memories. You know what, since you're here, why don't you give the tour?
Hey, I appreciate that. I'll do it. I can remember a lot of things, Jim. But I tell you, I don't like to remember everything, so would you help me?
I'd be very honored to help you.
All right, together we can do it.
Let's do it. Bill, I want to draw your attention to this. Tell the folks about this. I know this is Lee's original bass that started Ozark Opry.
Right. I tell you, this is one of my favorite cases in the whole museum, and there's kind of a story over here on the wall about it, but I'll tell you a little bit in a short story. Lee was over in France in the service in the early 50s, and some of his service buddies decided to put a band together, and they wanted Lee to play bass, but he didn't have a bass. And so he happened to find, in a trash, mind you, he found in a trash a neck to the bass and finally found the rest of it. They got it put together, and the way they put it together, they couldn't find a neck that would work on it. So one of the guys took a ball bat, a regular ball bat, carved it out to fit it. You can see kind of where the light wood starts on up to the neck. But anyway, part of that neck is a ball bat, and they made that bass playable, and that's the first bass that he played on the Ozark Opry, and we're proud of it. All right, this is interesting here because, you know, Mrs. Mace was a big part of the show, just as Lee was. Lee was kind of out front guy, you know, but Joyce was always in it, kind of helping to get going and rolling. And they were square dancers years ago. That's kind of how they got started, you know, in the business. And they were the first ones to put taps on their shoes and do the clog dancing with taps on their shoes. And I think they went to a contest in Kansas City or something, didn't they, years ago?
I believe so, Goof. They went to Kansas City, as I understand it, on a kind of a talent search.
Ted Mack Amateur, wasn't it?
For Ted Mack Amateur.
Years ago. That was popular years ago.
And they said, I believe there was 500 acts to audition. They chose 4. And the Lake Ozark Square Dancers was one of the 4 acts.
Yeah, and they got to go to the Blue Room in New Orleans by winning there in Kansas City, and they just kind of did it for the fun of it, never thinking they'd really win maybe, but they did win.
Yes.
And I think they were there supposed to be there like 1 or 2 nights, went over big. I mean, they tore the house down, and I think they were there almost a week or so before they had to come back home, you know.
Yes. And I know they went on to several other big events even after Ozark Opry started up to and including square dancing for Grand Ole Opry.
Yeah.
And the classic country TV series.
You know, you see it advertised on TV, you know, Grand Ole Opry, you know, entertainers, stars years ago. And if you look in the background, you'll see Lee and Joyce and the Lake Ozark Square Dancers clog dancing and square dancing. I mean, setting the floor fire.
Absolutely. It's amazing. Goof, come over here. I got to ask you a question here.
Yeah, I'll try to answer it.
I'm standing here looking at all this stuff, and I know people's got to be wondering what is going on here. Tell me, give me the story. We're coming into your wheelhouse. What's going on here?
Well, I'll tell you, Jim, this here is the first costume that I wore on the Ozark Opry, you know, and I wore out 2 or 3 or 4 sets along from the inside, I think, you know. But anyway, I think that hat, I retired that I think in '72, and I wore out 3 or 4 hats and everything. But anyway, that's kind of the garb that I kind of wore playing Goofer on the Opry, and of course played several different instruments. You can see the blowtorch there, and they have this what we call the pogo stick there. You know, we had all kinds of people come to the show. We had Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, we had FFA, we had all kinds of church groups. And so I had Cub Scouts in Columbia invited me up to do a program up there with them. They were having big shindig thing. And so I went up there to do it. Well, they surprised me, and they made that pogo stick for me. I think it was Troop 701 in Columbia, of the Cub Scouts. And so I played it on the show, you know, did some stuff on the show with it, Spike Jones stuff, and I played the thing, about beat it to death, I think. But anyway, I've got, you know, the blowtorch. I played several different instruments. Because on the show so long, you know, you had to kind of have something new going.
Well, let me ask you a question. Obviously, I couldn't go into a music store and buy that, or I probably couldn't go in, but what caused you to be that innovative?
Well, like I say, I needed to do something different. You know, every year we change the show and everything, and so after I played the, you know, the trumpet, sax, the steel, and the keyboard and stuff like that, the harmonica and the regular instruments, why, I thought, you know, there's got to be something else I could play. And Lee always said I was windy, which he was right. So,
well, that helps for all of us.
But anyway, I started out, I think, with a shotgun. I played a 12-gauge shotgun for years.
I remember that.
And a blowtorch, and then I had a bee smoker and a water can, and just, I don't know, 5 or 6 different things. But I just enjoyed, you know, entertaining people. That's something you don't see anywhere, you know. And of course, you don't get a request for it either, but then I'd play them anyway. But, and the guitar, of course, used that in some sessions in the studio there. I played 2 or 3 different guitars and everything, but that one been around the studio for a long time, the Ozark Opera studio.
Let me ask you this while you're on the subject.
Yeah.
Did you ever see anybody else in your career that went to this degree to come up with an instrument to play?
You know, I never have, never have. I go see other shows and other comedians, and I never seen anybody. And there might be a reason for that. Maybe I shouldn't have done it. I don't know. But,
I don't know. I think it worked for you for a lot of years.
Yeah, it sure did. And there again, I played a lot of different characters, you know. And one of the characters that got to be real popular was Aunt Effie. She was a character, I'm telling you.
This has to be Aunt Effie.
Oh, this is Aunt Effie. This is her garb here. Of course, her beads there, you know, pearls there around the neck, and the hat, and the stockings, and the shoes back there. And, of course, this is her cane, you know. She got around with that. But had a lot of fun with her, and one of the things that was really fun off of the show was buying dresses for Aunt Effie. You know, you go to a store, and wife and I'd go in there and be looking at dresses, and the lady would say, ask my wife, said, would you like to try that on? She said, no, but he would, you know. So, you know, kind of one of them things, you know. But anyway, I wore out 2 or 3 of those also. And of course, there's a harmonica I played a harmonica. That was a little big there.
That's a harmonica.
Oh, I did Malagueña on that, out of this world, boy. I just did. But played a lot of different instruments with that. I played a smaller one, though, too. But had a lot of fun with Aunt Effie. She danced and sang, and it was just a fun time, Jim. It was a good, and I think the people on the show, you know, we had a lot of fun with them over the years. You can tell on some of the films we got here in the museum, I'll tell you what, she was a blast.
Well, I'm going to tell you, you and I traveled a lot of years together, but all I can tell you is it's amazing the innovation that you put out to bring this about and make it a part of this show.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, the opera was my life, you know, as long as, and yours too, sure. You know, and a lot of other folks, and it was just kind of a family thing, and it was a fun thing. I'll tell you what, and being here in this museum, it's just like coming back home. It really is.
Absolutely. This is the reason why our job was to help people have fun and have a good time. It was a pretty easy job description to fulfill.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Boy, this brings back memories, I'll tell you, this does.
I think everything about Ozark Opry brings back memories, but tell me, what's going on here?
Well, you see that fiddle there? Of course, Lee was known for the bass fiddle, you know, but he played guitar, he played fiddle. This is a Sears Fiddle. Can you believe that? Right here in the Sears store.
So we've got a Sears store?
Yeah, he didn't buy it here. He bought it years ago.
Okay.
And Lee played the fiddle, and like I say, he rode that bass and slapped that old bass. That was his main thing. But anyways, a lot of little things in here. You know, we got his shrine cap here. You know, Lee helped me after the show. I'd go out there and he spent hours, you know, kind of helping me learn what I needed to learn to be a Shriner. And in, I think it was 72, I got to be a Shriner, and he and I both were charter members of the Scottish Rite in Columbia. And he did a lot of things, you know, for the community, for the Shriners. we were responsible, I say we, the Ozark Opry was responsible for raising millions of dollars for crippled children for the Shriners over the years.
Yes.
Because year after year after year, we went to several cities and did 2 or 3 shows a trip and raised money. They were always sold out, and it was just a fun thing, but he did a lot of good for that. He really did.
Well, I know that Lee's attitude and his intent about the show is that we would never take more than we gave.
Exactly.
And of course, it's a privilege to be part of that, but this is a great representation of what that statement means.
Yes.
In fact, for what Lee and you and the Ozark Opry crews that were traveling back then did.
Sure, and you know, a lot of it was with schools too. You know, of course, we bought a lot of band uniforms, a lot of band instruments, and made band trips for people that couldn't afford it. They had money raisers to do that, and so it was just quite a thing. I mean, there's a lot of things. Well, there are 8 tracks. I was looking at them. You know.
Well, interestingly enough, those 8 tracks are 8 tracks again off of the 25th anniversary show that we drew attention to a while ago. Of course, back then, 8 tracks were still popular. There will be a lot of people that don't know what an 8 track is these days. And I just about forgot what they were. But here again, it's all about wonderful memories.
Oh yeah. And of course, this picture back here, that's Lee with Carl Williams. He had Carl's Market around this area, you know, for years. And they was at the inaugural ball for Ronald Reagan. You know, that was a big deal. I heard stories about that for years afterwards. They had a time. But anyway, we thought it was worth putting a picture in here because he had such a great time doing that. Because Lee was in politics also. He had family in politics. Sure. And he kept up with it, and that proves it right there.
And Carl is actually Lee's brother-in-law.
Yep.
Carl is Joyce's brother.
Exactly. He was one of the square dancers, too.
That's right, he was.
Yep, sure was.
Goop, I want to ask you a question here. To look at this, it's not hard to figure out that these were some clothing, the boots and things that Lee used and wore on the show. Tell me some of the history and the memories that come with these.
Well, you know, I remember Lee wearing these boots. I mean, he clog danced, square danced in them, you know, but those were his favorite boots that he wore on the show. Of course, he wore out several pair throughout the years. And this coat, when you come into the museum, you'll notice a mural on the wall. That's the coat that Lee has on. And
so this coat was the coat he was wearing in 1978.
1978, you bet. And of course, Lee was very patriotic. And when you come in the museum, you'll notice this picture here is when Lee got back from the service, and he and Joyce are in this picture here. But he was very patriotic. I mean, he was very serious about it. And as a matter of fact, he did a recording, you know, the Ragged Old Flag that people, our local radio stations, they still play it, you know, on patriotic days. And he was serious about it and was really proud of the country. And
absolutely.
Need to be more people like him on that. Sure.
Absolutely, no question about it.
And of course, they got some of the tape, reel-to-reel tape. You don't see those anymore.
Almost like the 8 tracks are a thing of the past, aren't they?
Exactly. And of course, we always had souvenir books over the years. Not every year, but most years we had souvenir books that had pictures of family was important to Lee. And so you'll notice we have our families in there, and each year you notice we have the picture be bigger with more kids in it, you know, but it had little articles about the show, but we had those for years, and along with our brochures and things, and that was what was so neat that I enjoyed, was going around to all the businesses in this area to invite them to come to the show that year. You know, sometimes we'd have new help, and we'd have a new show, and it's just an exciting thing, and this museum is just unreal. I mean, you got to come and see it. Got to come and see it.
Springtime was a very energetic time in Ozark Opry's history. We were starting up for the year, and what was it going to bring? What kind of new and exciting things for the show? And it was just we were churning all season long. It was
an important part of the lake area. You know, back then, years ago, when Lee started the show, you either fished or went to the Ozark Opera. That's what you kind of did of an evening. And of course, as the area grew and everything, there was other things to do. but have generations of people say, you know, when I was that tall, I was at the Ozark Opry. My folks brought me, my granddad brought me, my grandma brought me, and now I'm bringing my kids, my grandkids, and it was just a great thing for the whole community here. And Lee and Joyce, they brought in a lot of people. I mean, we did road shows, and we'd invite people that had never heard of Lake of the Ozarks. And the next year, here they'd come with their family, you know, to come and see us and what we had to offer here at the lake. And so Ozark Opry and the Ozark Opry Museum is just still a big part of the lake area.
Goof, I want to be sure and draw your attention. This picture that's behind us is one of many that is on the wall.
Yep.
And as you're going around the room here, you're just gonna see kind of how Ozark Opry unfolded over the years. But it started with Lee and Joyce Mace. And I just kind of like to get your thoughts.
Well, this is my favorite picture, you betcha, because they are the ones that started it. They're the foundation that got Ozark Opry going and brought it up to what it is today. Right next to them, Jim, this is the first show that they had here at the lake back in 1953, down toward the dam, you know, in a basement. And this is the first group that they had there. And you notice you got 8 people on the show. That was a big show back then.
Yes. That was taken at Casino Pier.
Exactly.
Yes, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm noticing around here there's a lot of these, a lot of the plaques on the wall that you can tell are obviously covering a lot of years. There's a lot of things going on here. There's a plaque here with the albums, some of the albums that were recorded for Ozark Opry over the years that the band did. Promotional shots, brochures, promotional pictures, a little bit of everything.
Yep, 60s, it goes, you know, the 70s, 80s, and the 90s, and then up to 203 over there. It's just, these pictures are unbelievable. They tell a story as you go around the wall. If you've been to the Opry, it just tells a story of who was here and what they played, what they were doing.
Well,
and it's exciting.
It's literally a timeline,
is
what it is. Regardless of what year you ever became acquainted with Ozark Opry, or you know, your family, your children, your father, your mother that brought you, you're going to get probably a memory brought back to life just by going around looking at the pictures on the wall.
Yeah, it sure is. This is exciting. It's just exciting, Jim.
Absolutely.
I think I'm going to move here.
Goof, a couple things that I want to draw attention here, because these were milestones that Ozark Opry was very active in. One, television came into play not too awful long after Ozark Opry started, and then many years later we were also involved in a 50th anniversary reunion show. Can you talk to me a little bit and explain some of this?
I'll tell you, Jim, the TV show was great. You know, when it started out, it was live. I mean, this is back, I think in 1955 they started out. I think the MFA sponsored them for 13 weeks. They was going to run 13 weeks. Ended up being about 28, 29 years or something like that.
That's a pretty good run. Now you're talking about KRCG TV in Jefferson City.
Yeah, and it played on other stations, you know, off and on throughout the year, but they were the main ones, Channel 13 there in Jefferson City. And after a while we kind of got tape and all of that. And then you mentioned the 50th anniversary. You know, we invited everybody that had been on the Opry, you know, all from the beginning right up to that time. And fortunately, most of them came, you know, they could, and we had a great time. It was a great anniversary of people that had been on the Opry from the start. And so we have pictures of that. You can, as you come in the museum, you can look in and you can see some of the people that were here, you know, 20, 30, 40 years ago. It's really neat. It's really neat.
I remember there were some folks that were here that actually performed with Ozark Opry when the show was at Bagnell Dam. So at this point, that would have literally been their 50th anniversary for being on the show.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you what, this it's just something. This is just history. All around the wall is history, and it's just so neat. I can't tell you how many times I've been around and looked at it, and I still enjoy it.
Well, Goof, I just want you to know it has been a privilege to get to go on this tour through the museum with you.
Well, I appreciate it. It has been fun, Jim, and I'll tell you, you're full of knowledge, and I hope that we have given the people enough knowledge that they'll be excited to come and see the Ozark Opry Museum. It is great.
We hope they will. Now, answer this for me, if you will. What's next for you? What do you got going on next?
I've got another show to do, Jim. I do, yeah.